Hello, 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 and welcome to the Denise Newsome Show. I'm Black Diamond from Basic Black After Dark podcast, and I'm filling in tonight for Denise, who is on location and working on some awesome projects. But Denise wanted me to tell you something. She wanted me to tell you that she misses you all and hopes to see you in the new year, as this is one of her last shows for the 2023 year. So she'll be back, and she got some stuff waiting for you. Arlene Lomazoff Marron is the author behind the highly recommended Beneath a Blanket of Snow and If We Had Known. She is retired from a career in healthcare of more than 40 years, a contemporary writer, and her work has been recognized and reviewed in other countries. We're very excited to welcome our special guest for tonight's episode. Welcome, Arlene.
Thank you so much, Black. Pleasure to be here.
Oh man, go thank you so much for being present tonight. There's an inscription in your book, Beneath a Blanket of Snow. You wrote, believe in yourself, reach for the stars, and chase your dreams. You'll be amazed how far you can go. That sounds like something someone
Yeah.
would say if they had a bucket list. Do you have a bucket list? And is that on your bucket list?
Well, I do have a bucket list, but writing a book was actually not on the bucket list, or not something I was aware of was on my bucket list. And it's just, I guess, serendipitous the way it happened that um, right before I retired in December of 2019, a coworker said to me, "Oh, now you can start something on your bucket list." And I immediately replied, "I'll write a novel." And I was just very surprised. I was about as surprised as she was, because I hadn't thought about writing since I was an adolescent. And if someone had asked me what was on my bucket list, I would never have included that. So and I got to thinking later, why did I say that? There must be a reason. Maybe there's something um, that I have been holding on to for
Mhm.
more than 40 years. And so I thought, okay, I'll give it a try.
Okay. So Beneath the Blanket of Snow is your first book.
Yes.
It sounds like you should be in a cabin sitting in front of a cozy fire, wrapped in a blanket and drinking some
Yeah.
hot cocoa. Can you tell me about the book?
Well, it's really an analogy
Mhm.
for what is under pristine snow. We look at things and we think that we know what's going on. And in this particular case, there were four affluent couples living in the suburbs, seemed like they had it all. Everything was wonderful. The women spent their days having lunch and going to yoga and shopping, and seemed like everything was just wonderful. But outward appearances can be deceiving, and just like most of the rest of us in the world, they had their problems too, and everything started to collapse, and they had to deal with things that they never expected. There were lots of secrets. There were things that they withheld from each other, that they thought they were the best friends, that they knew everything about each other. There were things that were withheld from spouses.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I really think there were a couple of themes in the book. And one was that I really believe that we all have a secret, at least one secret that most people don't know about. And it may not be something dark. It may not be that someone, committed crimes, but it could be a medical problem that most people don't know that you have, that you're dealing with. It could be something in your family that nobody knows about.
Right.
And the other, one of the other themes was the fact that these are affluent people, and I know myself at sometime in my life, and a lot of us do think that people who are affluent, money can buy everything, and what kind of a problem would they have?
Well, it definitely sounds like an episode from one of the Housewives.
Yeah.
One of the branches of the Housewives, and I can't wait to get my hands on it to see what's going on in the book. As an author, what has really surprised you about the process of writing?
Well, it's really interesting that this book, you may have heard that authors sometimes say that their characters have their own agency, that they go their own way, that you might be writing the book, but you have don't have absolute control over your characters. And I had that happen to me, and I never would have believed it if it hadn't happened. And that was that one of the secrets that one character was keeping from their partner. It turned out that the partner knew. I didn't know the partner knew about the secret. And it was wild, because when this character revealed the secret, the partner said, "Oh, I've known for 5 years." And I thought, what? And that's just the way my fingers were typing. I've known for 5 years. And then I thought, well, how could that be? And then I just kept writing this whole couple of pages about how the character knew, how the partner knew, and why the partner didn't disclose that they knew. But it really hit me that you don't have absolute control. And I've spoken to other authors who have said, I have 2 characters who hate each other and now they're in love with each other. I'm trying to kill my character and my character won't die. And so it really, to me, that part of the story that I wrote was probably my favorite in that book, because it was totally unscripted. I just had no idea it was going to happen. The characters were having a conversation, and then the one said, "Oh, I've known for 5 years."
Wow, it just sounds like something awesome. And you have a trailer for this book, don't you?
I do.
Can we get a sneak peek of that trailer? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That, just like I said from the beginning, it just seems like it's something that you need to be wrapped up in a blanket, reading, and just don't have anybody else around and just going at it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character in that book?
Well, I think the main female character, Meredith, I suppose that she's my favorite. She is the one who, in some ways, I don't want to say she loses the most, but really she goes through a lot, and has young children, and has to really turn her life around, and is strong enough to do that. And I think that, people have asked me, is she modeled after me or after someone I know? And I would say that she is modeled after people who have gone through hardships and persevered and come out stronger. And there are so many people out there, and especially women, who have to do this every day. And when you get through to the end, and you come out stronger, it's wonderful.
Wow. In your experience, what is the one thing you find most difficult about writing? Did you find anything difficult about writing this particular book?
I think in general that you have to be concerned about putting together what you want to do in the beginning and how you want the book to end and find the path. And sometimes I talk about having a muddy middle of a book, or trying to avoid a muddy middle, which is, and it's hard. It's hard to figure out how are these characters going to do something reasonable to come out the other end, to come out at the end, and you don't have loose ends, and you don't have somebody who says, well, who is this person that you just threw in here? And so the path from the beginning to end, I think, is you have to make that work.
Have you experienced writer's block?
I would say that I've had times when I couldn't write a particular scene, and I usually went on to something else, or sometimes I wrote chapters out of order because I had an idea for one thing, but I, like I said, talked about, trying to get there, but I couldn't get there yet. And so I wrote a different chapter, a different scene. And eventually it comes together, but that can be the hardest part, to try to figure out how to get it together.
Was there time, like a lapse in that, like a big lapse in that? I know you said that you went to another scene, but when you found yourself in that space, I know you went to that next scene, but was there like weeks that would go by and then you just say to yourself, let me just go into another chapter because I'm just a little taken back on that one, so I need to move on? Or was there a great big period of time that just went by?
I would say probably, days, I would say. When I wrote Beneath a Blanket of Snow, I started it in mid-March 2020. So exactly where this is going. I actually, I guess the beginning of March, I had written the first chapter, and I decided that I would wait the rest of the year. Who knew about COVID then? And see how far I got by the end of the year, if I could really make this work. And then we were quarantined. So, when you're in with nothing to do,
you find something to do.
You feel, yeah. And so I would write. And so I didn't go through too long of a period of time when I didn't write anything. I was writing, most days I was writing something. It just took some time to go back and put it all together. And it was interesting because with that book, the title of the book did not come until I finished it. Most people think that I had this idea and I started the title, but actually it didn't. It didn't come until I was totally finished the book. And interestingly enough, I was, my husband and I were practicing yoga, and, we were in the house, and we were looking at, YouTube videos, and we had agreed that we were going to meet at a certain time that day, and we were going to do our yoga practice. And so I walked away from my computer and I did yoga practice. And at the end, which is a cool down period, you're basically, resting your body and basically resting your mind, is when the title came to me. And when my body was still, my mind was just totally at ease, and the title came to me. And it was, and I got up, from the floor, and I went to my computer and I changed book draft for my manuscript to Beneath a Blanket of Snow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So and so it just, sometimes the mind works in mysterious ways, and it just came to me. And once it came to me, I said, oh, that's it. That's it.
Now, you spoke about the title of the book. What about the cover? How did that come about?
Well, I wanted a scene, snow, and there's a lot of snow there, and basically that was my idea, that once the snow melts, whether it's people shoveling, whether it's dogs, whether it's cars going, whatever happens, is when you really see what's underneath. You see the cracks in the sidewalk. You see the lawns. You see the pristine. When it snows, we all look outside. If we're fortunate enough to be inside and not driving in it, we look outside and we say, "Oh, it looks really pretty."
Yeah.
But then once it starts to melt and it's, gets dirty and things fall in it, and we shovel, and sometimes when we shovel or, the snow is removed, there's even things underneath there that gets mixed in with the snow. And so it's not so pristine and nice anymore.
It's a beautiful cover, and the name is just a lovely name for it. Has writing books changed your life, and if so, how so?
Well, it's given me an outlet, and it's given me being known and a skill that I never expected. So the fact that this came to me late in life, that I didn't set out in a career in writing, is especially sweet. It's given me a tremendous amount of self-satisfaction. And it's, regardless of how many copies I sell, or, that, to me, the idea is just that it's an accomplishment. And I think, and, really would want to encourage everybody to just pursue something that you never thought you would do.
Right. And it goes almost along with a bucket list for some people to do some things that, people would never do. Is there going to be a part 2 to this book?
I didn't plan that, although I've had several people who have suggested that I could take it into how each character has matured and perhaps, aged. So I'm thinking about it. I did not set out to do it, interestingly, because I had no idea how this was going to go. And, when you're writing your first book, you don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to be, a bestseller and I'm going to just write a series of 6. You're just thinking, okay, I'm writing this book. At least I did. So
when you set out by doing a book trailer, have you thought about bringing your characters to life on the screen?
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, because you have the trailer already, and I'm quite sure that's going well, and you've been probably been getting some great reviews on it. So, what's stopping you from going full force to bringing these characters to life?
You said it, so I'll, if it happens, I'll make sure to.
Well, let me be one of the first that you tell.
Okay.
Now, you said that you just started writing later on in life. Were you still were you retired at the time you began writing, or was you writing just before retiring?
No, I was retired, and I retired in December of 19, and then I took the beginning of 2020 to try to think about how I could do this or whatever. And then I wrote the first chapter. So it was just an innocent comment from a coworker, and I often wonder what would have happened if we hadn't had that conversation. It just spurred something that obviously I must have had this in my brain for decades. And when I was an adolescent, I wanted to write, and I thought about going to college to get a degree in some kind of writing. I wasn't sure what kind, perhaps journalism. And I went to nursing school instead.
Oh, okay.
And I never it was a big change. I had a friend who was going. I had volunteered as a candy striper in a local hospital. And so as innocent as I was, I had no idea what really involved in nursing, and so my friend was applying to nursing school, and I said, oh, I could do that. And so I applied, and I got in, and off I went. And I never really thought much, and if at all, about writing over the years. I could always put sentences together, put words together. I was a good speller and, good command of the language and punctuation and things, but I just never thought about writing until that comment.
What is your friend that suggested you write? What does she think about, or he think about you now, and think about your author?
Yeah, she was so excited. As a matter of fact, I actually, thanked her in the back of the book, in the back of that book, and I called her right before the book came out, and I said, I have to tell you this because I kept this very quiet when I was writing. I didn't initially tell anyone, including my husband, and
Wow.
and I think that part of me was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to pull it off, and why would I say anything? And he happened to just see me sitting at my computer all the time, and he said, "What are you doing? You're spending so much time there." And I told him, and so it wasn't until I finished it. I had a friend who had worked for a newspaper and decide, he's a writer, and so he graciously agreed to give me a critique, and planning that he was going to read a little bit of it, and then when he got back to me and he said, this really flows well, and I like it, and I can follow the story, and it's well written. And I thought, wow. Like, really? Because we tend to doubt ourselves.
Wonderful. Yeah, we do. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
What was it like once that first book came back to you and you actually had it in your hand and you was looking
God.
at it, and your name was across the bottom? Tell me about that.
There is just nothing like it. And I'll tell you, it's just incredible to see a book, even if there's one copy on your own bookshelf. It's incredible to see a book with your name on it. And it's just unbelievable. And I have friends who have written poetry or journals, and I've talked to them about publishing it. And they said, I don't know. And I said, you just have no idea what it's like. And I tell people that, writing a book, publishing a book, holding a book in your hands that you wrote just ranks way up there in the list of the best things in life. It is just unbelievable. And it's a great thing. You order copies of the book and the box comes and you open it up and you're like, unbelievable.
Just imagine the feeling.
Yeah.
Just having that in your hand, seeing your name across it, and
I know.
bellying over, crying, or just grinning and just holding it and hugging it. Like,
it's unbelievable. It is. It's just, it's a great feeling.
Now, you had mentioned that when you were younger, you had thought about writing, but you did not. And a friend had decided to go into nursing school. What other career would you have chosen if not nursing?
I think, if my friend had not said, I'm going to nursing school, I would have applied to college for some writing program. So I don't know if it would have been journalism, if I would have, tried to write. I'm not sure. I knew that I was interested in writing. And I, interestingly, over the years, I didn't regret it. I never said, wow, I should have been a writer. I just, I had a very successful career in nursing, and I raised a family, and I just didn't think anything of it. But I do really feel that would have been what I would have done. That's the way I was leaning, was going to college for writing.
You said you retired after 40 years, and again, I know, I can imagine. I can't say I know. I could imagine being a nurse and going into retirement, but boom, COVID hits, and you had just retired.
I had just retired. I was actually not involved so much in clinical nursing at the time. I was more involved in the back end, in medical records administration, that type of thing. But the part of me that the knowing what was going on, certainly I worked my share of clinical nursing, and to just know what these people were going through. And in my career, I had patients in isolation, but not COVID, and so, you're used to an occasional, masking up, gowning up, certainly wearing gloves, but not to the extent that this happened. And it to me, I just, was just so floored. And I was just in such amazement for the people, the healthcare people who just did this day in and day out for so long.
What was your feeling about that moment? Once we all heard about COVID, did you think it was going to last as long as it did? Or did you think it was something like a flu, which in some forms they say it was, that it was going to be over maybe in a matter of weeks?
Yeah, I think we all thought it was going to be over in a matter of weeks. And I, I talk to people all the time, and we said, oh, remember when they told us you have to stay in for 2 weeks? And we said, 2 weeks? How are we going to stay in the house for 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. And, then it was months and years. And, I think it was just, a big unknown, but certainly I didn't have any, inside knowledge, but I don't think most of us knew, expected that it was going to be basically years.
Was there a time during that COVID period that you felt like you wanted to come out of retirement to go back to help in any kind of way?
I actually had volunteered to give vaccines.
Wow, thank you.
It didn't come to fruition, but that I was on a list of people. And I do still actually volunteer at a clinic that is run entirely by nurses who are volunteering. And so we were open. We closed for part of COVID, but then we opened. And so we did have people come in, and we did have to deal with that.
Well, yeah. You say that you came and retired, but that's going to always be within you. The helping spirit, wanting to do more. Is any of your characters working in the hospital or have worked in the hospital, or even a scene in the hospital? Are any of your characters?
In this book, yes, actually. There was one of the characters had actually worked in a hospital and no longer needed to work because her husband, made lots of money, and she left the field. And so, there's some discussion in the book about, how she deals with her own problems, and, if in fact she finds that she needs to or wants to work again. There was a scene where a child of one of the characters was injured. And so there was a hospital scene. There was a hospital scene, and there was a part of a laboratory getting lab work done in the hospital.
Well, right about now, we're going to go take a break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Arlene about her second novel, If We Had Known.
Dr. Kiana Battle gives service from the heart, focusing on training, education, and professional development. Specialty areas include grief and loss, trauma, informed practice, policy development, grant writing development, public school social work education, professional presentation, and youth and adolescent development. Consulting service fees are based on specific specialty areas. There is no charge for the initial consulting. You can contact Dr. Kiana Battle today by emailing her at info@kbattleconsulting.com or visit her website at www.kbattleconsulting.com.
welcome back. We are here with author Arlene Lomazoff Marron, the author of Beneath a Blanket of Snow. So let's talk
Thank you.
about your second novel, If We Had Known. It's a great title, If We Had Known. Just reading the title would make a reader want to know more about that. Was that intentional, or is the intention within the chapters?
Actually, that title was intentional. And the idea was, if we knew what would happen down the line, would we make the same choices in life? In this particular case, it was a choice that the character made more than 30 years before. But I know I myself have said, gosh, if I had known that this would have happened, maybe I would have done things differently. Or I think that most times all of us can wonder, and whether it's a educational choice, whether it's a marriage, a relationship, having children, taking a job, buying a property. And so that was why I actually put a crystal ball on the cover, because what would happen if we looked in a crystal ball and we knew what would happen? Would we make the same choices?
Well, I think that we all come across something by saying, if we had known, if I had known this, if I had known that. Like, if I had known those to pick those numbers for the lotto, I would.
Yeah, right.
Numbers, so that comes across
Right.
with me for that. Now, you have a trailer for this book too. Can we get a peek at that one?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that one does have a little
one.
more of a medical background, although I did not want to scare readers. So it's there, but it was not. It was a background, and it was not. A major. I mean, there was a major medical issue, but it was not the major focus of the book.
Well, I was intrigued by what I seen, so I don't think it would scare. It didn't scare me. It just made me want to know what's going on, what happened. Excuse me, but what I do notice is that when you spoke about your first book, you talked about young couples and the success of some of the couples and the secrets. With this book, it seems like the couple is a much older couple.
Yeah,
Why
I think that was. I mean, I did that intentionally, but I think they were just more seasoned. They were a couple that had been together for a long time. But also the fact that this was something that she had done, Carly, the main female character, something that she had done more than 30 years ago, and actually concerned something she had done in college. So once I decided that it was going to be that period of time, so I placed the characters probably in their mid 50s, something like that.
Well, it seems to be perfect. He's on the gurney being wheeled into the hospital, and there's some sort of secret with this one as well. You hear the title.
Yeah. I never.
More secrets.
Yeah.
With your stories.
And it's interesting because I never. Well, I said I think underlying people have secrets, but it was just it just came about. And the other thing is I never expected when, that you could solve people's problems in the space of a book, or that I could. Certainly nothing that I said, well, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to solve everybody's problems in this book. Of course, I don't solve everyone's, but the fact that that in 300 and some pages that you can actually present the problem and fix it in the space of a book, or at least make it better.
Another great book, another great title, and another great cover.
Thanks.
What was the meaning behind the cover of that
one? This was if she had a crystal ball, if any of us have a crystal ball, to know what will happen. And I remember saying that when I've had my own problems, and most of us go through problems, and we get through them, and then maybe we have more problems. But you often say, gee, if I had a crystal ball and if I knew, or can somebody tell me what will happen here? And we just make our way through. But I specifically remember saying, if I had had a crystal ball, if I had known that this would happen. And so that part of the crystal ball was actually me, thinking that if we knew and if we had a crystal ball.
Wow.
See into the future.
Your books are in the contemporary fiction genre. Why did you choose that particular genre?
Well, I guess I'm a realist, and I don't know that I could write or enjoy writing something like fantasy or science fiction or something like that. It's not something that I really would feel comfortable doing because I'm a realist, and so I have to see real life, and that's just the way I am. I just for the same reason that I probably could not write a romance book well, because I think there's certainly some romance that's true life, but a lot of the romance books that are out there are, people say, oh yeah, really, that wouldn't really happen. Cowboy falls in love with a movie star, whatever, and so that type of thing. And I'm a realist, and so I have to have characters who are real.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you mentioned your husband. How long have you been married?
We actually have been married 24 years. This is our second marriage each. So we have a blended family.
Oh, wonderful.
And so we've each been through our own things.
So you could do romance 24 years?
Yeah, I could do romance.
Some people don't even make it past the second year.
Yeah.
24 years, you could throw that in there.
Yeah, and it's hard, and it's it's some ways was difficult in the beginning because we had 5 children who were teenagers, five between us, and that's and so that's I think that I look at this period in my life as we made it through, things are good. I wrote these books, and nothing to complain about type thing. So I'm in a good spot in my life.
Okay. So where do you get your information or your ideas for your books?
I've always been kind of a daydreamer, and for a good part of my career, I actually traveled to work by public transportation, and I would look at people, and I would imagine what was going on. In Beneath a Blanket of Snow, I actually would look at people, and part of this happened when I was going through some of my own troubles, and I would look at people and I would say, oh, they look so happy together, but there must be something because all these people who are walking around holding hands in the mall and everything, there's things. There's, one of them is doing something or they're hiding something or whatever. And so I just really started thinking about that. And I was in a much better place by the time I wrote Beneath the Blanket of Snow, but that's that part of me still, remembered what it was like. And
would you say that was watching other people? Would you think that was an inspiration to write the books?
I think that played a part in my first book, Beneath a Blanket of Snow. Well, definitely, it's an inspiration for both. The watching the couples together and thinking that things couldn't be that jolly was part, I would say, of the first book. But certainly watching people, and all, my characters are fictional, but they are drawn. Sometimes I would see people and I would think, what does that person do for a living? What's that person's family like? What kind of a personality do they have? And, it's kind of fun to create your own characters.
Yeah. Especially when you have some that you just want to kill off and you need them for something else.
Well,
one of that you love to hate.
Yeah, one of my daughters-in-law, after she read Beneath a Blanket of Snow, said, I liked all the characters except, and she told me who. And I thought, I took that as a compliment, because I thought if I developed a character, created a character that was so real that you did not like him, then I've done my job.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly. When do you find it to be the best time for you to write? Do you prefer to write in the morning? Do you prefer to write at night? What gets you to get to that typewriter? Well, not even typewriter, computers now. I had to go back a little bit. But what gets you to that moment? Or is it one of those aha moments, like I have an idea, I'm going to rush, or I just been, sitting there maybe gazing at the sunset or watching a television show? And I know you mentioned when you was on the bus, but what gets you to that point that you have to put pen to paper, fingers to computer?
Yeah, I sometimes come up with ideas for parts of the book, chapters of the book, situations, when I'm not writing, and I may sit down and write it later. I am a bicyclist. My husband and I, ride for pleasure. And there have been times when I'm out riding in the open and something comes to me. Oh, I'm going to include that in there. Now, I don't always go and sit down and write it then, but I do remember when I have time. And I tend to write probably morning to afternoon when I do. But it's, I usually have an idea in my head before I sit down. Not always. Sometimes you just have to work at it. But often I have some idea that I'm going to use. And it's not something that I have to write down when I think of it, because I usually, will remember it. I kind of am rolling things over in my mind. How am I going to work that type thing?
Okay. I'm curious to ask this next question.
Okay.
Are any characters in either book anything like you, or maybe how you were when you were a little younger? Anyone? You don't have to tell me who the character is, because I'm going to get the book and I'm going to read it. And
okay.
Just for this interview, I'm going to figure out this is you.
All right. What I would say is that Meredith, who was the main female character in Beneath the Blanket of Snow, I wouldn't say she was like me, but what I would say is some of the things that she did were things that, or feelings, emotions were things that came from me. And there is a scene in there where she opens up the cabinet with her liquor and makes some comment about or thinks about drinking, that maybe things will be better. She can forget about her problems, and then decides against it. And that actually happened to me. I distinctly remember picking up a bottle of something and putting it down and saying, no, that will not solve anything. So for that was definitely, came from me. The character itself was fictional, but some of the things and some of the situations were, my emotions and how I had reacted.
Wow. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing
yeah.
that. Yeah, I think as authors that there are some part of a character, doesn't have to be the main
Yeah.
character, that's a little bit like us because we created that character.
Yeah.
Or either
Yeah.
maybe that's the way we want to be or wish we could be or anything.
Yeah. Well, I decided with her, how is she going to deal with all of these, everything falling down and one problem after another. And then I just had her, reach for the bottle of alcohol. And then I thought, okay, I can relate to this.
Which readers do you think can relate most to your books?
Well, I would say someone who's a little bit older, and I'm not saying the younger person couldn't read it, but some younger people who haven't had adversity in their life, and I'm not suggesting that younger people haven't, because many of them have, but when you're a little older and you've been through issues, had your own trials, your own problems, I think those are the people who can most relate to my characters.
Okay. We've been chatting for a minute, and I have an idea as to who you are as a writer. I would like to get an idea of who you are as a reader. What book is currently on your bedside table?
Actually, I belong to 2 book clubs, which I definitely advocate doing. And so right now, I have a historical fiction book that I just finished, actually, The Nature of Fragile Things by Susan Meisner. So, and actually that's for my book club. That's for tomorrow. And it's interesting because I was never one who probably would have gotten into reading historical fiction if it wasn't for book clubs and reading books that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up and enjoying them. I have a book that I'm starting called Yellow Wife, again for a book club, about a woman in slavery. I just started it, but slavery, and promised her freedom and doesn't get it. And I have my next book that's lined up after that is called Take My Hand. And the reason I'm actually going to read that is because that was part of the book club that I missed last month. So I understand everybody really liked this book. And I said, then I absolutely have to read it. And so a lot of what I read is book club books and books that we get to discuss. And so that's really a great part of being in a book club.
Well, I'm quite sure your books is probably in a book club as well. What does your family think about you being an author?
Oh, they were excited. It's been, great. They're very happy, very proud. My grandson, my oldest grandson, who's 11 now, when he was about maybe last year or maybe when he was 9, they did the Women's History Month, and he was asked what woman that he admired. And he said my grandmother, because she's an author. And I just thought, oh, this is wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
The things you never expect.
Wow. What other projects are you working on now?
I actually have 2 books that I'm working on. Well, one of the things that I did was I worked with a great narrator, and Beneath the Blanket of Snow was also available as an audio book. And so that was an interesting experience, because you have someone who reads your book and I have to critique every word. And it's wild because some things I honestly didn't remember writing that paragraph, but of course I did, because I've got my own copy of the book here and it says it right there. I'm working on two things, totally independent of each other. The first one is tentatively titled From the Ashes, and it deals with the aftermath of an apartment fire and people trying to put their lives back together again. And that came about because, we see so much in the news where there's some catastrophe and people are, unfortunately, they talk about the people who died or maybe were seriously injured, but they don't talk about perhaps the people who were left homeless when their home burned and what happened to them. You just don't hear about them anymore. And, the survivors. And so that's one thing. And this is a little serendipitous too. So my 50th high school reunion is coming up in June. So that tells everybody about how old I am. And one of my former classmates on social media had suggested that I write a book about the reunion. And about their classmates. And I kind of put a little ha-ha and said, only if I can change the names. But that got me thinking. And so I have started something about, classmates and 50 years later and going to the reunion. And I don't know what I'm going to title that yet. But that, I think I'm actually going to place it exactly where it took place, which was in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow. Sounds great.
So,
what would you say to someone who has written many poems or short stories but never published them? In other words, they're hidden in the drawer. They just have all this information in the drawer. What would you say to someone?
I would say, go for it. You're never too old. And I would say you're never too old to try anything new, within your physical means, because too many people think that when you get to be a certain age that this is it. Oh, I'm too old to try that. And I know myself, after age 50, I have just done so many new things and so many things outside of what I would have considered my comfort zone. And I think that people perhaps are afraid that if they try something new, they're going to fail.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
Right. But, you can't fail if you don't try, and you may find that you succeed. And that was actually the quote that you mentioned in the beginning was actually what I had actually, started and the in the my first book and written for my children and grandchildren.
Wow.
Follow your dreams, reach for the stars. You never know where they're going to take you, because so many people just don't.
Yeah.
And so I would say if you have poems sitting there, you always think, gee, and how many people are told, gee, say, oh, I could write a book. I should write a book. And, why not? And there were so many ways to do that now. It's easier than ever. And, to get your book out there. And I've even said to people, well, suppose you don't want, you're afraid to have everybody else read it. And you just want to write your book. You want to publish a book. You want to print copies for your family, leave them something.
A legacy.
Yeah. And the one thing about a book is it's there. You've done the work. If you sell copies today, next week, next year, next decade, the book is there. You've done it.
Yeah. Are you on social media, and where can our readers and listeners interact with you?
Well, the best place one of the places would be my website, which is right there on the screen. And also LinkedIn, which is kind of an umbrella for all of my social media addresses.
And where can they buy your books?
And the books are available on Amazon, ebooks, also on Kindle Unlimited. I know a lot of people like Kindle Unlimited, and it's a great program. And they're available also as paperbacks and hardcovers. And they're, it's like I said, it's just a wonderful thing to see people. And, occasionally somebody who has bought my book or at a book signing asked me, to sign it. And, oh, would you mind signing it? And I just said, oh, no, it's such a thrill. You have no idea what it's like.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you, Arlene, for joining us tonight and sharing your journey. And I want to thank all you tuning in to tonight to the Denise Newsome Show. If you came a little late, I want to let you know that Denise is thinking of you all while she's working on bringing you some more of her wonderful stuff for the new year. This is Black Diamond, and I wish you all well.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this evening's broadcast. The Denise Newsome Show, the show that gives credit where credit is due, has a new monthly show schedule. New show times are as follows. The first Monday of the month will be a powerful word of God. The second Monday is In Your Element, where our guests share their gifts and talents. On the third Monday, join the ladies of Mask Off, where authentic conversations happen, with our hostesses Denise Newsome, Sybil Price-Rucker, and Deirdre Moody. And on the fourth Monday is Sitting with Denise. All show times are from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share at the Denise Newsome Show. Increase your brand's awareness by advertising with the Denise Newsome Show. Let Denise help you to get your message out. She offers a 30-second video commercial or voiceover flyer with your information. Contact Denise at denisenewsome.com or email her at denisenewsome64@gmail.com for more information. Help the Denise Newsome Show give credit where credit is due. You can contact Denise today at www.denisenewsome.com or by emailing her at denisenewsome64@gmail.com with a love offering or sponsorship gift to help her keep the show running. You are appreciated at the Denise Newsome Show, and she looks forward to hearing from you. The views and opinions expressed in the content or comments on the Denise Newsome Show are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by the Denise Newsome Show. Join the Denise Newsome Show next week with guest host Sybil Price-Rucker as she speaks with author Blossom Rogers on From Under a Bridge. Stay tuned.